Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jamuna Tera Vanachari Hare Krishna, oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, oh Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, oh Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacharya Astotara Shata Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopinath, Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Nu Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Yamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Prihat Mridanga, Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the divine lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so I'm going to follow Vijay Prabhu's lead yesterday and kind of read up till there's a little bit of a purport. So it's going to be a little bit of a reading. There's a purport, there's a short purport up in about 10 or 15 verses. I think we crossed the chapter line. And then tomorrow, whoever is giving class, there's like a 3.5-page purport. So that's a feast in the 5th canto. There you go. If you start studying now, you could probably, it's really extensive. Okay, so, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nasta Preshu Badreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service under the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we are in the 5th canto and chapter 21, the movements of the sun. Oh, excuse me, this is where the marker was. 9? Sorry, I guess the marker didn't get... I just got to change glasses real quick, actually. I'm realizing that's the reason I can't read. Okay, text 9, chapter 22. Thank you. Okay, I'll just read the English, if that's okay, because there's a lot there and we have to cover some ground to get to the next purport. Text 9, right? 22. The orbits of the planets. When the moon is waxing, the illuminating portions of it increase daily, thus creating day for the demigods and night for the Pitas. When the moon is waning, however, it causes night for the demigods and day for the Pitas. In this way, the moon passes through each constellation of stars in 30 muhurtas, an entire day. The moon is the source of nectarian coolness that influences the growth of food grains, and therefore the moon god is considered the life of all living entities. He is consequently called Jiva, the chief living being within the universe. It's interesting too, because sometimes we hear how the demigods one day is our 6 months. Is that right? Or am I getting that right?
One day is like 6 months.
For the demigods, right? Yeah.
24 hours.
Right. 1 year. Okay. Yeah. So these calculations seem to bear that out. Like how they're 1 day and so much time is passing here. It's interesting. Even at the level of the Pitas, Pitriloka, and the moon. Because the moon is full of all potentialities, it represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The moon is the predominating deity of everyone's mind, and therefore the moon god is called Manomaya. He is also called Annamaya because he gives potency to all herbs and plants, and he is called Amritamaya because he is the source of life for all living entities. The moon pleases the demigods, pitas, human beings, animals, birds, reptiles, trees, plants, and all other living entities. Everyone is satisfied by the presence of the moon. Therefore, the moon is also called Sarvamaya, all-pervading. There are many stars located 200,000 yojanas, 1,600,000 miles, above the moon. By the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are fixed to the wheel of time, and thus they rotate with Mount Sumeru on their right, their motion being different from that of the sun. There are 28 important stars headed by Abhijit. Purport. Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying, Drew? 200,000 yojanas, right? Oh. Oh, I got it. Okay, I see. I'm sorry. Editorial. Oh, great. Thank you. Purport. The stars referred to herein are, so 2,400,000 miles above the sun, and thus they are, 4 million miles above the earth. Won't be able to. Okay. Translation. Now is this also, are we still going with the 1,600,000 on the next verse? Okay. Some 1,600,000 miles above this group of stars is the planet Venus, which moves at almost exactly the same pace as the sun according to swift, slow, and moderate movements. Sometimes Venus moves behind the sun, sometimes in front of the sun, and sometimes along with it. Venus nullifies the influence of planets that are obstacles to rainfall. Consequently, its presence causes rainfall, and it is therefore considered very favorable for all living beings within this universe. This has been accepted by learned scholars. Mercury is described to be similar to Venus in that it moves sometimes behind the sun, sometimes in front of the sun, and sometimes along with it. It is 1,600,000 miles above Venus, or 7,200,000 miles above Earth. Mercury, which is the sun of the moon, is almost always very auspicious for the inhabitants of the universe, but when it does not move along with the sun, it forebodes cyclones, dust, irregular rainfall, and waterless clouds. In this way, it creates fearful conditions due to inadequate or excessive rainfall. Kind of interesting, even in the modern, Western astrology, they have this Mercury retrograde thing, when Mercury moves a little differently, and everybody's like, they recognize that as a disturbing force. Situated 1,600,000 miles above Mercury, or 8,800,000 miles above Earth, is the planet Mars. If this planet does not travel in a crooked way, it crosses through each sign of the zodiac in 3 fortnights, and in this way travels through all 12, one after another. It almost always creates unfavorable conditions in respect to rainfall and other influences. Sometimes there's a connotation of wars and things, right, with Mars. Mars is certain positions of Mars. It's Translation: situated 1,600,000 miles above Mars, or 10,400,000 miles above Earth, is the planet Jupiter, which travels through one sign of the zodiac within the period of a parivatsara. If its movement is not curved, the planet Jupiter is very favorable to the Brahmins of the universe. Situated 1,600,000 miles above Jupiter, or 12 million miles above Earth, is the planet Saturn, which passes through one sign of the zodiac in 30 months and covers the entire zodiac circle in 30 anuvatsaras. This planet is always very inauspicious for the universal situation. Situated 8,800,000 miles above Saturn, or 20,800,000 miles above Earth, are the 7 saintly sages, who are always thinking of the well-being of the inhabitants of the universe. They circumambulate the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu, known as Dhruvaloka, the pole star. Purport. Srila Madhvacharya quotes the following verse from the Brahmanda Purana. Gyanadan datmano Vishnu shishumara vapushyata urdvalokeshu savyapta adit yadyas tad ashrita. Lord Vishnu, who is the source of knowledge and transcendental bliss, has assumed the form of Shishumar in the 7th heaven, which is situated in the topmost level of the universe. All the other planets, beginning with the Sun, exist under the shelter of this Shishumar planetary system. I'm going a little farther for a purport that I could try to share a little bit on, because thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Orbits of the Planets. Chapter 23, the Shishumara planetary system. This chapter describes how all the planetary systems take shelter of the pole star Dhruvaloka. It also describes the totality of these planetary systems to be Shishumara, another expansion of the external body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dhruvaloka, the abode of Lord Vishnu within this universe, is situated 1,300,000 yojanas from the 7 stars. In the planetary system of Dhruvaloka are the planets of the fire god, Indra, Prajapati, Kashyapa, and Dharma, all of whom are very respectful to the great devotee Dhruva, who lives on the pole star. Like bulls yoked to a central pivot, all the planetary systems revolve around Dhruvaloka, impelled by eternal time. Those who worship the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, conceive of this entire rotating system of planets as an animal known as Shishumar. This form is, this imaginary Shishumar is another form of the Lord. The head of the Shishumar form is downward, and its body appears like that of a coiled snake. On the end of its tail is Dhruvaloka, and on the body of the tail are Prajapati, Agni, Indra, and Dharma, and on the root of the tail are Datta and Vidatta. On its waist are the 7 great sages. The entire body of the Shishumar faces toward its right and appears like a coil of stars. On the right side of this coil are the 14 prominent stars from Abhijit to Purnavasu, and on the left side are the 14 prominent stars from Pushya to Uttarashada. The stars known as Punarvasu and Pushya are on the right and left hips of the Shishumar, and the stars known as Ardra and Ashlesha are on the right and left feet of the Shishumar. Other stars are also fixed on different sides of the Shishumar planetary system, according to the calculations of Vedic astronomers. To concentrate their minds, yogis worship the Shishumar planetary system, which is technically known as the Kundalini chakra. Now the translations. We're just going to read this verse and then the next one. So, Shukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, 1,300,000 yojanas, which is 10,400,000 miles, above the planets of the 7 sages, is the place that learned scholars describe as the abode of Lord Vishnu. There, the son of Maharaj Uttanapad, the great devotee Maharaj Dhruva, still resides as the life source of all the living entities who live until the end of the creation. Agni, Indra, Prajapati, Kashyapa, and Dharma all assemble there to offer him honor and respectful obeisances. They circumambulate him with their right sides towards him. I have already described the glorious activities of Maharaj Dhruva in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like in Mayapur, when you circumambulate, that deity is always on our right side as we go around. So temples that have this arrangement, they follow this. Okay, so do we want to do any part of this one responsively? Okay, all right. I'm not going to attempt the Sanskrit if that's okay, or should I? Okay, thank you. Translation. Established by the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pole star, which is the planet of Maharaj Dhruva, constantly shines as the central pivot for all the stars and planets. The unsleeping, invisible, most powerful time factor causes these luminaries to revolve around the pole star without cessation. Srila Prabhupada's purport. It is distinctly stated herein that all the luminaries, the planets and stars, revolve by the influence of the supreme time factor. The time factor is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is under the influence of the time factor, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind and loves his devotee Maharaj Dhruva so much that he has placed all the luminaries under the control of Dhruva's planet and has arranged for the time factor to work under him or with his cooperation. Everything is actually done according to the will and direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But to make his devotee Dhruva the most important individual within the universe, the Lord has placed the activities of the time factor under his control. Om Jnanatamidandasya Gunan Shalakaya Chakshurun Manitanyanatasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So this is describing, so in depth, so wonderfully, the situation of the universe, universes, planetary systems, planets. Some of these we have some concept of because they're in our regional area here. Some of these specific planets that we're reading about today. And, one, just quick point is that we see that even today, with all of their so-called scientific advancement of knowledge-acquiring apparatuses and telescopes flying in outer space and all this stuff, that the basic understandings that are given in the Bhagavatam thousands and thousands of years ago are pretty much verified, especially culturally. The influence of these planets, how the moon affects the mind, how Mars creates wars, these things have been recognized and felt and experienced by people for millennia, So, and here it is explained, so many thousands of years ago. So Vedic knowledge is totally comprehensive. That's why we see a few purports ago, a few verses ago, Srila Prabhupada was explaining that we accept this Bhagavatam version. It may not agree with the speculative scientific theories that are being put forward at this particular time and place, but Prabhupada made that point, that their theories are changing constantly every few years. But the Bhagavatam, this version, this is the standard version, This is, it's, was it sometimes, I think there was one presentation, standard books of knowledge, right? Devotees were promoting sets that way some years ago, standard books of knowledge. So this is the standard knowledge. And here we see that, Krishna, one of his many powerful energies, right? Time I am, the great destroyer of the world, and I've come to engage all, living beings like that. So this time factor is, even if someone says, take your God, I don't care, blah, 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 Krishna comes as time in the form of death, right? So time I am. So here it's describing one of the powerful potencies of the Supreme Lord, the unsleeping, invisible, most powerful time factor, causes these luminaries to revolve around the pole star without cessation. So this is the, magnificent, majestic, power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But here we see, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport that Krishna's happiness is not having, parades of people coming and glorifying him. Of course, he accepts everyone's devotional service, right? And as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is being glorified by so many learned sages and demigods and so many personalities throughout the unlimited universes. It's naturally, and we're being trained, of course, to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like we are worshiping Radha Krishna, but we do so in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan because we have to develop the proper attitude of service, of seeing ourselves as humble servants of the servants, right? So ultimately we're meant to experience that very personal, loving relationship with the Lord, but we don't necessarily get there, without being properly trained by the devotees of the Lord, right? What is that? Shruti, Shmriti, Purana, De Pancharatra, Vitim, Bina, Aikantiki, Harabhakti, Upadavikapote, that all of these books of manuals of devotional service given by the great acharyas, given by the Lord, we need to learn all this. We need to be trained. We need to be guided, right? So, Krishna is unlimitedly powerful. He's unlimitedly beautiful, famous, strong, right? All the qualities defined in the term Bhagavan. So, that's his day job, right? And then, because he doesn't want to just be consumed with all those important things, he expands, the Mahavishnus and, right, all of these different forms of Lord Narayan, and everything's being, he expands as Balaram, and Balaram, takes it and expands as all these other personalities of Godhead, and they get everything taken care of as it needs to be done. And Krishna, he wants to reciprocate with his loving devotees, right? There's a beautiful name for Krishna, which is, and actually this morning, if we look carefully at Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, our wonderful devotee Bhaktivatsal Prabhu, who's been Das Prabhu, who's been named after this wonderful name of the Lord, is that the Lord is addressing Lord Jagannath this morning, and Bhaktivatsal, the Lord is always affectionately inclined towards his devotees. This is Krishna's happiness, right? Krishna's, obviously he's happy to receive the worship of all the planetary leaders and everybody. But when there's a pure devotee, right, this is Krishna's bliss, So we see that the Lord, when a devotee actually comes to the platform of devotional service where they have pure loving devotion for the Lord, at that point, right, Lord Brahma points out in the 10th canto, although Krishna is Ajita, right? He's unconquerable, and we've seen that. You read the Krishna book, you read the Bhagavatam, Krishna is unconquerable, but Jito, he becomes conquered by the love of a pure devotee who, by hearing about Krishna from pure devotees and in the association of devotees, has become so attracted to Krishna and so attached to Krishna that they naturally dedicate their body, mind, and words to his service. And when a devotee comes to that platform by the grace of their spiritual masters and the Vaishnavas and the Lord, then Krishna, there's nothing better he wants to do than to reciprocate with that devotee, right? And that's why this Bhagavatam, the beautiful story of the personality of Godhead and his devotees, is so important because it's highlighting again and again and again these instances of devotees, right? Right, like that instance with 9th canto with Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. So, Krishna sent the chakra, chased them all over. He's going everywhere. Give me shelter, give me shelter. Everybody's like, Siddhar Sun chakra's behind you. What can we, what can we do, So finally he gets it. Okay, this is Krishna's personal weapon. I have to, So he goes back to Lord Vishnu. Please, call off your chakra. And he's like, I can't do anything. You've offended my devotee, And then he explains that my pure devotees are always in my heart, and I'm always in the hearts of my pure devotees. My pure devotees don't know anyone but me, And I also don't know anyone but them. So if you want to get relief from the chakra, you get back there to King Ambarish, who's humbly waiting for you. Because he says, King Ambarish, on the other hand, he's just feeling so sad that this great yogi is being chased all over the universe, and feeling so sad that, the yogi hasn't been able to, feed him the feast yet that he had. He's just so humbly tolerating everything. So when devotees are on this level, right? So here we're studying Dhruva Maharaj, right? And as Vijay mentioned the other day too, briefly, like he had, such a powerful personality, such an amazing dynasty, that whole Kshatriya above, and so, maybe he's 5, but when he was offended, like he didn't just think, oh yeah, whatever, but like, okay, well, forget this kingdom, if I can't sit on his lap, my granddad's Lord Brahma, okay, so let me have a kingdom, let me really show, get one up on this whole situation, and not only did he think that way, which anybody can do, but that drita, that determination, that drita vrata, he just kind of went out there and did it. And as Vijay mentioned, even Narada Muni tested him, tried to, go home, everybody's waiting for you, they'll receive you warmly, help me, or, Hare Krishna, So then, Narada Muni gave him the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, never underestimate that mantra, and finally, his austerities and his chanting, and he had come to such a point in his devotional austerity that because he had ceased breathing, or breathing so occasionally, that this actually basically sucked up all the air in the universe, right? Like his breathing became like the predominating control factor of all the air in the universe, and all of a sudden all the devas in the heavenly planets are like, it's hard to breathe, like, so when there's big things in the universe, they go to Brahma and like, what the heck's going on, and he says, well, yeah, I know what it is Dhruva Maharaj, so, like this, and then, ultimately go to Lord Narayan, please, this devotee, he's wanting to see you, and so then, the Lord came, right? So he had that desire, and he'd performed such a big austerity. And the driving force that got him into that whole powerful austerity, this went on for a long time, with just incredible focus, was he wanted this kingdom. But then, when the Lord appeared before him, from all of that chanting, he was initiated, he was chanting a mantra on the order of Narada Muni, pure devotee. By coming to the point of purely chanting that mantra, and then the Lord appearing before him, what happened? What happens when somebody engages in pure devotional service? Material desire goes away, exactly. So when he actually saw the Lord, right, then the Lord is wanting to benedict him, and he's just feeling so embarrassed. He's just feeling so like, because I had a great desire, I was performing all these austerities, because I wanted this kingdom. But now that I am seeing you, I am seeing that great desire that I had that was so important to me, that I worked so hard for, that I sacrificed so much for. I'm seeing that like little pieces of broken glass, just broken glass. Like you walk down the alley, right? Some guy smashed their Bud bottle on the alley, right? So is that significant? Is anybody thinking about it other than the guy with bare feet? No, it's just like, and they're just staying away from it too. So, he said, now that I have attained the shelter of your lotus feet, which is the topmost Divya Ratnam, the topmost transcendental jewel, that this idea of becoming the most predominating person in the material world, even above Brahma, right? That's become like broken glass, right? So that's the mood of a pure devotee. But then when the devotee becomes pure like that, then the Lord's whole mission is to serve that devotee and to glorify that devotee. So here we're seeing the Lord was so pleased with Dhruva's devotion that he was like, yeah, but you wanted that, and I'm here to give that to you, and I want to give that to you. I want to give you a kingdom greater than your grandfather, and I want you to rule over that, as a wonderful devotee, and I'm so pleased with you. That's where my abode in this universe is going to be. You know what I mean? So not only did he get what he thought he wanted, even though he didn't want it anymore, he got something that was inconceivably more wonderful than that, you know. So, and this is the Lord's bliss. This is the Lord's happiness. He's Bhaktavatsala. He's eager to glorify and to serve his pure devotees, right? So we see this in this pastime with Dhruva Maharaj. And then right now, I'm reading I think it's the 9th chapter, 8th or 9th chapter of the first canto, I said not Lord, but Bhishma Dev, you know, Maharaj Bhishma, right? And it's a very similar situation. I was reflecting how, you know, the Lord, he's Bhaktavatsala, and his real thing is reciprocating with his devotees. It's like all this other stuff. You know, that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, there's that verse, is it Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvas Shantam Nigachati Konteya Pratijanihi Na Me Bhakta Pranashati. Arjuna, you declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes, right? And so then there's a commentary, I think it's from Vishwanath Chakravarti, Prabhupada quotes it, not in that purport, but understanding is given that Krishna is telling Arjuna that you declare it because he knows that sometimes he may break his promise because some devotee may be in trouble or some devotee may need to keep his promise. And ultimately, Krishna, he'll even sacrifice. I mean, there is no higher promise giver than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? By definition. But Krishna will break his solemn vow, right? So we see when in the Mahabharata and in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, different aspects of this Leelas are shared, you know, and the Bhagavatam, some of the really devotional essences are shared there in the first canto of topics that are more elaborately described in detail in the Mahabharata. So, you know, this is an amazing pastime because we understand that Krishna does many, many things with all of his actions. Krishna performs one action, but a lot of different things are simultaneously going on, right? It's kind of a general understanding that we see. And in this pastime, which relates to him telling Arjuna that you declare it boldly, that my devotee never perishes, we have this really amazing pastime because the battle's going, right, and going and going and going. And, you know, Duryodhana is expert diplomat. I mean, you know, he was, you know, very expert at these things. What is a diplomat? They get people to do what they want them to do, you know what I mean? And so he is dealing with his generals, at that time, the foremost of whom is Bhishma Dev. And he knows that he has great affection for the Pandavas. You know, he knows Dronacharya does, he knows everybody does. And, you know, probably deep down he knows why, you know, because the Pandavas are completely virtuous. That's why he's so envious of them in one sense, you know. But anyway, so he plays on that, you know, and so he's saying to Bhishma Dev that, like, you're not really fighting to your full capacity because if you were, you know, the Pandavas would be finished. And Bhishma Dev's like, no, you know, I'm doing my best. I've done this, I've done that. You know, it's like, but he's kind of, you know, pressuring him. So Bhishma's, okay. You know, so Bhishma says he gets these 5 arrows and he invests them with this Shakti, you know, and he says, you know, tomorrow with these 5 arrows, you know, I will basically kill the Pandavas, right? So, you know, this is a big deal, you know. And so, of course, Krishna is the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that night back at the camp, you know, Krishna's talking to Arjuna and he says, I need you to do something, you know. I need you to go over to the enemy camp and, you know, go meet with Duryodhana. And, you know, when you get there, because you're Kshatriyas, he's going to immediately say, you know, how can I serve you? Arjuna, great. You know, these guys would fight all day, but their training as Kshatriyas was at night they would be friends, right? Jarasandha and Bhima fought for, was it 30 days? And every night they had dinner together, you know what I mean? But during the day they were like slugging it out, you know. So this, you know, amazing personalities, right? So Krishna knew that Duryodhana would immediately, you know, welcome Arjuna and offer him benediction. I think he even went to the point of saying, do you want the kingdom? Do you want the battle? You know, whatever you want. And Arjuna said, no, you know, we're here to fight. But there's just one, you know, just one thing, Duryodhana, whatever. You have 5 arrows. Because what happened was Bhishma Dev empowered these arrows, and then Duryodhana wanted to make sure, I forgot to mention that part. So Duryodhana said, well, let me keep them. He wanted to make sure those arrows were there the next morning. So he said, let me hold on to those. So Duryodhana was the one holding these empowered arrows that were meant to kill the Pandavas. So Arjuna said, you have 5 hours. If you could just give me those 5 hours, that's all. So Duryodhana immediately, oh, yes. So then, Arjuna leaves with the arrows, and Duryodhana scratched his head. He's thinking of Krishna again, So anyway, so then Bhishma Dev comes in the morning, for the arrows, right? And Duryodhana is like, well, this happened and that happened. And Bhishma Dev, far from being disturbed, he's just contemplating wonderful Krishna. That Krishna has engineered this, right? And just appreciating all the more. And because, he's one of the 12 Mahajans in the universe, one of the great authorities on devotional service, and just like Krishna wants to glorify his devotees, the devotees are always thinking how to glorify Krishna, right? So then Bhishma says, okay, well then I can't empower 5 more arrows, but let's do this. Unless Krishna breaks his promise and comes to the defense of Arjuna, today I will do everything I can to kill Arjuna. So for Duryodhana, that's like just as good, really, because if you take out Arjuna, he felt he could roll with that, So, okay, and these camps, everybody has spies. There's spies everywhere all the time. So, word gets back and forth between the Kaurava and the Pandava camps, right? So, they also came to know this, So anyway, then the fighting started, the battle's going on, right? So that day, Bhishma Dev just does this full-on, just like assault on Arjuna, and just like anything standing between him and Arjuna is just like blown out of the battlefield. And finally, it's just like this one-on-one duel, and it's going. And those kind of situations, everybody else just kind of like stops and watches because it's, demigods are in the sky. It's just like, Arjuna and Bhishma, right? So it's like going, and it finally gets to the ultimate minute where basically, Arjuna's armor's shattered, he's like covered with arrows, it's like everything, the horses are dead, it's just like a mess, And it's like the next moment, Arjuna's probably going to be killed, that kind of moment. And then Krishna just jumps off we all know the story, but jumps off the chariot, rips off one of the wheels of the broken chariot, and he's just like, charging across the field towards Bhishma. Bhishma says like an elephant, like a lion towards an elephant, going to kill an elephant, And then Arjuna, also a pure devotee, he's mortified, not because he's about to get killed. He's mortified because, oh no, Krishna's breaking his promise on my behalf. I don't want Krishna to break his promise. So Arjuna's running after Krishna, and he's like, hanging on to Krishna, trying to stop him. And meanwhile, Bhishma Dev's just like kicking back in the chariot, like, Jai Shri Krishna, like just to see, because Bhishma Dev's deep desire was to highlight Krishna as Bhaktivatsala, how to protect his devotee Arjuna and to protect his devotee Bhishma, because Bhishma had made that promise to do all of these things. Krishna is coming to kill me. And he was like, yeah, I'm ready, And then just as Krishna got there, we know that, the end of the day came, the conch shells blew, the battle was over, right? So, but in this one pastime, you see Krishna in this form of Bhaktivatsala, how he is so wonderfully showing his favor to Arjuna, to Bhishma. Everybody's doing their duties, but like this is being brought out. And then, the battle goes on, and Bhishma's on the bed of arrows, all that happens. And then Krishna, he also wants to glorify his devotee Bhishma. So what happens? How many millions of people died to... Many. Millions and millions and millions. 940 million, right? 640 million. Thank you, Vijay Prabhu. So... and Yudhisthira is such an amazing devotee, right? And, just to backtrack for 1 second too, then you have the Rajasuya Yajna, right? So Krishna encourages Yudhisthira. Well, Yudhisthira asks Krishna to do it, but they're all thinking Krishna wants the Rajasuya so that Yudhisthira is glorified, and Yudhisthira wants to do the Rajasuya so they can glorify Krishna, right? With the Ardra Puja, like that. So all these things are going on. So then finally, Bhishma Dev is lying on the bed of arrows, the battle's over, and Yudhisthira is just feeling so bad that like, once it's all done, the funerals are over, he's looking around and like, Duryodhana was doing an okay job. I mean, he was Duryodhana, but like the kingdom was going on, and all these people are dead. All these men are dead. All these people are widows. All these children are orphans. Like, why? To put me on the throne. So he's feeling just so disconsolate, right? And Srila Vyasadeva, tries to console him with transcendental knowledge. Lord Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, tries to console him. All these, amazing personalities. He's inconsolable, right? Inconsolable. So then Lord Krishna says that, we need to go to Bhishma and let Bhishma instruct you. So the Pandavas, they all come there with Lord Krishna on their chariots. They all come down at the feet of Bhishma Dev, and of course, because of the passing of Bhishma is impending, all of the great sages from all over the universe, the demigods have come, all the important people in the universe are there at Bhishma's bedside, right? So, and then when, when they arrive, Bhishma receives everyone, so nicely, although he's not able to get up and, garland them and all those things because of his condition, but with sweet words and like that. So, and then he immediately begins to explain to the Pandavas that person who you thought was your cousin, your messenger, your guide, your counselor, Lord Krishna, he's just glorifying Krishna, how he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Maharaj Yudhisthira, asks Bhishma Dev for this guidance. So then, in that state, Bhishma Dev gives all this amazing guidance. It's summarized in the first canto. It's in depth in the Mahabharata. And he gives them all that guidance. And then when he gets to the end of giving all this important knowledge and statecraft and everything, and also relieving Yudhisthira's burden of all that happened on his behalf, when he gets to the end of his instructions, like it was mentioned the other day, you have Dakshinayana and Uttarayana. These are the southern and northern courses of the sun. So Bhishma had that benediction that he could leave this world when he was ready. And I think the sun was in Dakshinayana, is that right? And he was waiting for it to turn to Uttarayana, is that right? The northern course? Anyway, it's considered more auspicious to leave during one of the two, and I believe it's the northern. But anyway, Bhishma had also been waiting for that, so then all of those things kind of happened at the same time. So he stopped giving his instructions, and then Lord Krishna was right there before him, and he just began to glorify Krishna. Like the last of his life, he was just offering all of these beautiful prayers to Krishna, and he was first glorifying Krishna, and then he began to get more specific and glorifying Krishna as the chariot driver of Arjuna, and ultimately glorifying Krishna in that wonderful form, right? When Lord Krishna was taking up the wheel of the chariot. This is his worshipful Ishtadev, so to speak. And Prabhupada points out in the purport also, like we understand, he was in chivalrous rasa, which is a secondary rasa, and Prabhupada also points out he was also in servitude, like he was serving Krishna by his fighting, and I think this is the last point I wanted to try to bring out. So he was, glorifying Krishna in those ways, and sometimes Srila Prabhupada points this out in a lot of places. Sometimes people, they think that getting into Krishna consciousness is like the higher rasas, you know what I mean? Like taking it to the extreme is like the Sahajiya class of devotees, right? They try to really just focus on, they think like Dhruva and Bhishma and Pandavas, and this is really not, our place. But Prabhupada points out again and again and again the importance of these devotees and their relationships with the Lord and what we gain from understanding the Lord's pastimes with them, and there's one verse in that section where it's described that when Bhishma, that worshipful form of the Lord, there were arrows that had hit Krishna from Bhishma, right? And it's explained in one verse that Krishna was feeling those arrows ripping in, hitting, being shot at him, like the same way he would like when we're having the Pushya Abhishek, for Radha Giridhari, like flower petals, we're throwing all these flower petals. He was feeling Bhishma's arrows like that. Why? Because those arrows were being shot with pure, loving devotion in the mood of servitude, right? So, and in one purport, somewhere, I didn't get a chance to look it up this morning, Prabhupada goes so far as to explain that he was feeling those arrows similar to the love bites of his fiancées, right? That's also explained, right? So, we can't, we have to understand these points. It's very important because when someone becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, their reciprocation with the Lord is perfect. You know, there's absolutely nothing lacking, right? You have, like we heard, I think it was on Sanatana Goswami's appearance or disappearance, I think you gave the class about Anupam, the younger brother of Rupa and Sanatan. And they tried to convert him to Krishna Bhakti when he was a great Ram Bhakta. And he agreed. I mean, you know, imagine having Rupa and Sanatana Goswami try to convince you about something in devotional service, you know. It's like, he agreed. But then all night he was in total stress because he was thinking, how can I give up the service of my worshipful Lord Ram? And in the morning he came to them and said, you know, I've sold my soul, you know, to the lotus feet of Lord Ram. Murari Gupta also similar, and both of them were glorified by Lord Chaitanya as, you know, real devotees of Lord Ram. So, you know, the relationship that one has with the Lord is perfect, you know, and so much so that, like, the Lord wants to glorify the devotee wants to glorify the Lord, and that's Krishna's business, you know, is reciprocating with the devotees. So I better stop there. Any comments, corrections, questions?
Yeah. Thank you for a wonderful class. That was story time. That was really illuminating. That was wonderful. Yeah, we should have a night where you just tell stories. That was awesome. And you glorified Krishna so nicely and talked about how his devotees glorify Krishna. It's like if you're watching a movie and, you know, like you cry if something happens or you hold your breath, but if it was all glorifications of Krishna happening, it'd be a very ecstatic experience, you know. We'd be part of it, not just witnessing it. So it's just a basic question because there's so much going on in these, there's so many descriptions going on here. I remember when I was first trying to read the Bhagavatam and I got into some of these long lists and all these different things, and you're trying to conceive of it and they add more to it and more to it and more to it, and you're trying to make sure I understand, okay, it is over 1 million miles, okay, and then another 1 million miles. This is long before telescopes, you know, long before, and they have it all down. They have the order of the planets and what their functions are. But we didn't get to Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. Do they consider Pluto a planet? Do you know?
I thought I heard the other day that they decommissioned it. Is that right?
But does the Bhagavatam recognize? Do you know?
No, I don't think Neptune
or Uranus is listed?
They weren't described here in this particular description.
Because they stopped at the gas giants. Like we have the 4.
It went out to Saturn, right?
Yeah.
Today?
I'm not saying, I don't know if they deny their existence as celestial bodies, but they don't.
Because they're the less important ones.
It seems like they don't have significance like, in terms of astrology.
The first 4 are made of like stone and metal, and then Jupiter and Saturn are gas giants. So, and then we get to Dhruvaloka, which that got my interest, you know. Now we see something, okay, we're going through these planets, and then we get to this thing that's like, wow, this is the center of the universe then? So that's what I'm trying to understand, is the relationship of our sun to Dhruvaloka. Who's rotating around who? Who's at the center here? You know, that's very powerful. Dhruvaloka, wow, there was so much. And Kundalini's there, and everything's. That's where you want to be, you know.
Right. Well,
I'm not sure if that's a question, but I was very impressed with what was happening at the end of that
totally
list.
Unqualified to answer it, but just from the description that we were just reading in the last days and weeks, I get the impression, you know, like we're understanding the sun's relation with all of us, you know, planets and things, and now obviously all those rotations are there and they've been described, but everything, the whole ball of wax, the whole ball of ether or whatever you want to call it, it's all rotating around Dhruvaloka. Am I getting? Is that a reasonable? Yeah. Right. You know, just like we have our north and south poles, you know what I mean? So, yeah, like everything is rotating around that, you know, and that's...
The entire universe is rotating around.
That's our understanding, isn't it?
Okay.
That's the understanding that I got from what we've been reading lately, yeah. And that's also Krishna's appreciation of Dhruva Maharaj, you know, like, it's such a nice point that, you know, even though obviously the time factor is Krishna's, but Krishna kind of puts it under the charge of Dhruva Maharaj, you know what I mean? Because, you know, what's one more amazing energy to Krishna. He wants his devotee to be, seen as in these positions.
So understand that we're, by the Vedic understanding, is we're not rotating around the sun. All of us are rotating around Dhruvaloka, or we're rotating around the sun, and the sun is rotating around Dhruvaloka.
Well, and I'm a total layman, but let's look at it like this way, like circles within circles. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say that you have one circle and there's things doing something within that circle, but that's in a bigger circle, and there's other things happening there. So like those Russian boxes, keep opening it up, you know what I mean? So just to give a really crude example, like there's, micro and macro and in between, but there's a lot of different things going on, if that makes any sense.
And then when they refer to stars, because they were referring to different stars there, what are stars?
That was dealt with, about a week ago? I know there was something, we're talking about these stars here. There's the 7 sages. Were those stars? Yeah, at a very high level, just below Dhruvaloka.
They're reflecting the light of the sun, or are they self-illuminating? Because what makes them a star? I guess, do you know?
I thought that all the luminaries are luminous on their own.
Okay.
Yeah, what's that verse about give off reflected light? Oh, I'm trying to remember. It's not coming to me real quick. Yeah.
I remember I asked Rajendranath that when he gave some class, maybe about Dhruva Maharaj, maybe it was even about the pole star, but I thought he said something that both are going on, that they have their own light and they're the same. I thought, again, it's not really, I'm not saying this conclusively, but I thought he said something like there's truth to both of them, that they're self-luminous, and that there's also an aspect of reflecting the sun's light. I thought that's what he said, but I would need to verify that.
And ultimately, all that light, as far as I understand, is coming from the Brahmajyoti, right? It's all reflecting from there. Is that?
That also sounds familiar. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Because the material world is intrinsically a dark place,
Because I appreciate this greatly, because I am really wanting to cover over or completely supplant my understanding of the scientific view of the
Ask
world.
Dharma Setu if you can borrow that book that he was quoting from on Tuesday.
Okay.
Because, we want people to have that inclination, and we want people to really understand. These things are not easy to understand for most of us. So if you have that inclination, try to borrow that book from Dharma and read it, and other books by Sadhaputta also, because he put a lot of research into those Vedic cosmology, a series of writings.
So I'm sorry if this felt like a little bit of a backtrack, but I'm learning these great new things, and you're having these aha moments, and I'm just making sure I'm ironing
I wish
correctly.
I'm not very learned in those areas, so I wish I could.
And that was my last question, was we keep hearing Sukadeva Goswami talk about all this is understood by the learned scholars. So why is he saying that, as opposed to hey, this knowledge actually comes from Krishna, this is how it is? Why is he referencing learned scholars? Because it makes it kind of seem like, to the best of their abilities, these learned scholars have put this forth as what they think is correct.
Well, like Prabhupada explains that, in spiritual circles, you quote authority, you know what I mean? It's not just it's like this because I say so, but you always reference authority.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Okay, this is Dravida brought it over, which shed some light. Okay, this is Bhagavad Gita 10:21. Yeah? Purport. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore, the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun, the moon illuminates, so also do the stars. Since Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns, but are similar to the moon.
Home run.
Home run. Out of the park. Thank you, Dravida.
One note, that paragraph was not accepted by the original editor, and he cut it out.
Oh, gee. Wow. Jai, that's...
I was going to ask that question today.
Wow. It's so interesting to learn about some of the different, edits and things. Also, like how, so... Anything else?
Well, I was just reflecting that in the yeah, reflecting in the Adi Leela, in the chapter where Krishnadas Kaviraj is talking about the confidential reasons for Mahaprabhu's appearance, he mentions another instance where Krishna breaks his promise. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "Ye tamam prapadyante," that however a devotee reciprocates with me, I reciprocate with him accordingly. But then he says that the love that the gopis have for Krishna is so intense, it's so amazing to Krishna even, that even he says, I can't do anything to reciprocate. You'll just have to be satisfied with the service, because I can't do anything to reciprocate with you. So
such a nice point. Thank you.
So it's just amazing, because nobody else has that conception of God, and nobody else has a conception of God. I mean, and it makes sense, because in pure love, there's no rules. As long as that foundation of pure love is there, what can stop it? What?
Yeah, that's a great point. Isn't it? One of Shiva Ramaj's books is basically on that point, right? That Krishna can't repay their love. I think one of his books is written about that. Yeah, that's as also Naparyaham. Yeah. It's a wonderful series of writings, and you see that. I always think of that in relation to our Srila Prabhupada also, because okay, he's coming off of this boat, and you read the prayers that he wrote on the boat, right? The last, after his heart attacks, and then sitting in Boston Harbor. And here, you have, I don't know what the population was then, maybe 250 million people. Satsrup Maharaj puts it in the Lilamrita that they were determined to stay the way they were, just absorbed in materialism, couldn't give a hoot for Krishna, didn't know, so they live in the American dream, right? And you have one pure devotee on the battlefield, sacrificing everything with total devotion to his spiritual master, total love for Krishna, and you just, Samaham Sarvabhutashu, Krishna is, equal to everybody, but when you have a pure devotee out there on the field, it's, I'm speculating maybe, but I think that's when he violates people's independence a little bit as the super soul, I was watching Vijay yesterday, and people come up and all of a sudden something clicks, and they take the book and they give a donation, and they walk away with the deity in their hand, and a total transformational event, just happened. And there's a second there where it could go either way. I mean, some other people came and right? And you book distributors see it every day, right? But, in every aspect of life where one comes in contact with Krishna consciousness, with a devotee of Krishna, the super soul's involved. He's witnessing everything, and so it's very mysterious. But all I can imagine is that Srila Prabhupada's desire to deliver us was so much greater than our desire to be in Maya that here we are, And I don't know if that means Krishna violated something or not, but it just seems like there's a lot to that, and I'm more than willing to be corrected on that. But okay, so we can end there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
I'm sorry, no questions from Zoom?
Sorry, Prabhu.
Do you have the time?
Yes, for you we always have time.
Oh, Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. My question is, in order for Krishna to make me the most important individual within the universe, what is it that I need to do? Read and study all of Prabhupada's books, please?
particularly the section about Dhruva Maharaj, although I don't know if copycats count, but you know, that level of devotion and determination, and yeah, but no, that's half jokingly, but yeah, you hit on the formula. You know, if we associate with devotees, if we serve Krishna in the association of devotees, if we read Srila Prabhupada's books, if we, you know, practice Krishna consciousness as fully as possible, that's the path forward.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much.
And
As
every
to be
devotee,
expected.
every devotee that attains pure love for Krishna is the most important person in the universe, hands down, right? That's why you see when these great devotees are leaving the universe, everybody shows up. Like the Bhagavatam was spoken because King Prickett was getting ready to go back to Godhead, and everybody wanted to be a part of that because nothing bigger ever happens here, ever. Bhishma Dev's leaving, everybody's there. Like these are, you know, so these are the most important people in the universe. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Vaikuntha Prabhu, as to be expected, very helpful, outstanding answer to my question. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.